So I guess first of all, good evening, everyone, or morning, depending on time zones. Uh, yeah. So welcome to another one of our CSCH community events. Uh, this time around, we have Kevin, the founder of CSCH and a bar raiser at Amazon, going to go over the Amazon interview process and help demystify it for everyone. So the structure of the event is going to be, well, first of all, we're going to just let Kevin talk kind of freestyle and give us an overview of the process. He's going to talk about on what dimensions candidates are kind of evaluated, uh, and then we're going to kind of finish off with bring up the legendary leadership principles that I'm sure everyone or almost everyone here has heard about. And then once that's all said and done, we will be answering your questions that were submitted over the past week on Dory. Uh, and the Dory page will remain open for the entirety of the event, so you can always ask new questions and keep voting, and that will help us pick out new questions as the event progresses.
Yeah,
And
we'll go down in popularity. So the questions you really want answered, share it or upvote it.
right, and I guess with that said, uh, we can start. So I'm going to leave you the stage pretty much yourself, Kevin, for the next however long it takes, and then yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
yeah, 130 of you so far are gonna hear me talk for 2 hours. Yeah, so thank you. Welcome everyone. I just a reminder, I am Kevin. I'm the founder of CS Career Hub, CS Career Hackers at the time. I am a bar raiser at Amazon, which means I know a lot about Amazon interviews, and I'm going to help answer some of your questions today and give you an overview of the process. Start out, everything I say today is going to be what is public to you. I don't know anything that is private. I'm going to try to help alleviate some of the scary things that you've heard, especially about bar racers. Or I'm going to make it more scary. I don't know yet. Uh, but today, hopefully, you'll be able to walk out with better knowledge of the Amazon process. What I am not doing, though, is teaching you how to interview. The expectation of this is that you are coming in with the ability to do data structures and algorithm questions, that you've seen lead code style questions, that you have an understanding of how to code. If you don't, this is probably not going to help you yet. So you should come back and watch this when you do. So, yeah, again, thanks everyone for showing up. Phil and Dory, I'll answer those, vote them up. So, to get started, I'm going to talk about the overview of Amazon interviews. And I'm doing this from an SD standpoint, the back end specifically, but some of it does apply to the front end. Uh, so, to start out, there's 4 to 5 interviews. There is the hiring manager interview, there's the bar raiser interview, and then there's 2 to 3 IC interviews. And then each one may have a shadow attached to it. So you may see 2 people in one room. Both of those people or one of those people are evaluating you. The other person's evaluating the person they're shadowing. Uh, so for backend SDE work, there's 4 categories. There is coding, logical maintainable. There's coding, problem solving. There's coding, data structures and algorithms, and then there's a system design question. And then there's a bunch of LPs that go along. To break this down, logical maintainable is how readable and how maintainable is your code. I feel a lot of people who just write bad code. If you come in, you write the sloppiest code ever, you write single letter variables, you put everything into a monolithic function and say, I'm done, you're going to fail. What I want you to do is go in, take the question, say, all right, this is what I'm doing, create your main function. And then anytime you have different functionality, create a new function and call it. So one of my questions is number of violence problems. So you traverse through, and every time you hit a one, you do a depth first search on that and turn everything 0, and then you count the islands. So what some people do is they do that all in one function. That's bad. I would normally write a separate function that does the depth first search only. That is helping it to be readable and maintainable in the future. And at Amazon, that's important because you do a lot of packages that are single use, or you do a lot of services that are single use, and then you put those services together to a bigger function or a bigger service that does everything you want it to do. The interview is the same way. So if you walk away with anything for this part, write clean code, write self-documenting code. So don't write single letter variables except for iterators. Write variables that make sense. Write function names that make sense. Write separate functions for different functionalities. And write small testable functions for that matter as well. Don't write a big function. And then test it. Go back and be like, all right, we considered these edge cases. Let's test for each edge case. Write a unit test and say, all right, I said I want to do this. Let's write a test that will test for that. If you do that, chances are you'll pass the logical and maintainable. When I ask it, it's one of my easiest questions. It's literally reverse a substring in a string. So it's supposed to be easy. Some people don't ask data structure and algorithm questions. They just ask something very, very basic and see if you can write clean code. So that's logical and maintainable. Data structures and algorithms, I don't have to tell you that. Practice your data structures and algorithms. That's, yeah, like I said, number of violence problems, it would be a depth first search. So a hint that I always give everyone else is that when you're looking at a interview question, it has a sub question to it. So every hard leak code question you'll ever see has a basic data structure, basic algorithm question that it's really asking. One question I used to ask is to take the square root of a number, or write a function that will take the square root of a number. What that really boils down to is, given a sorted array of numbers from 0 to the number, find the value where itself times itself is equal to the number. When I name it that way, the first thing that should come to your head is, oh, I want to do a binary search. So instead of solving the square root, what you're really solving is a binary search. So you're going back to one of your basic data structures and algorithms questions. And then finally, we have problem solving. This one is how you should approach doing all interviews. How I do it is I start out with a question. They ask me a vague question, and then I look at the question and I say, all right, what is this question asking? Do I understand what it's saying? Do I understand what I need to do in order to say this is successful? If I don't, I ask questions. So I ask clarifying questions, and I ask questions that lead me to edge cases. And that could be, okay, I see that you want to reverse this, but in this case, it'll create a separate substring. Do I also reverse that substring? Or a number of violence problem. Do I want to do extra do I want to have extra memory to say, okay, I keep track of what I visited inside of this extra array instead of doing it in place. So ask clarifying questions. After that, consider what your edge cases are. What happens when it fails? What happens when the data isn't there? What happens if I give you bad input? What happens when it's too large? Things like that. So consider when it could fail and how you handle those failures. Uh, a lot of people I see will return a valid function or return a valid result for an invalid thing. So they'll return 0 for a square root function when it's a negative number for some reason. Learn how to throw exceptions. Learn how to throw and catch exceptions. So instead of saying, okay, if the value is less than 0, return 0. Instead, say, throw an illegal argument exception. Hey, you can't have a negative value for a square root function. Yeah. So now you're considering edge cases, you're considering when it fails and how to handle those failures. And you want to think about what the customer wants out of that function and how to pass it in a good way. And then finally, when you get to the question, same thing as before, right? Clean, readable code. Implement those edge cases. So implement the error checking, write the clean code, and then test it at the end. This is how to solve a problem in the beginning. And then you kind of expand from there. And one thing I missed is you also want to consider the different solutions. So consider, hey, I could do a breadth first search, or I could do a loop, or I could do this. Here's the pros and cons of each. Here's the complexity and time and space complexity of each. Here's what I'm going to go with. Here's why. I could improve it on this, but we don't have X amount of time. So in theory, that is going to be everything so far, a TLDR of what you should be looking at for those 3 categories. So to take a quick pause, does anyone have any immediate questions on that? I'm looking at event chat. I'm not looking at Dory just quite yet. And Gopher, if you see anything, let me know.
Yeah, I think we can just give people a bit of a chance to type out their question. I see already lots of people typing. Oh, okay, yeah.
Are we? Yes, we're only covering the on-site interviews.
And for a big small, it was a number of island problem, a fairly classic interview
Yeah,
problem, as I understand it.
yeah. It's actually technically a banned question, but I ask it anyway.
Oh, what a rebel!
I mean, I have a good reason to. I can expand out. So even if the person knows, which by the way, most people fail, I can expand it to additional things. So the idea is to ask a question and build on it. So I'll ask, hey, number of islands problem, and then what are the islands? Then I'll build to something like, all right, here's here's a large data set with a sparse number of islands. How do I calculate that? What I started doing recently, sorry for the cough, is number of islands around a cube or a globe. So a 3D object.
Oh, that is an interesting variation I've
Yeah.
never encountered before. Interesting.
Yeah. So I do that. I build on things. So this part is for software engineers. Everyone who's interviewing for Amazon could get more advice from the LP side of things. Yeah, so logical, maintainable, data structures and algorithms, and problem solving. Those are the 3 coding versions of it. And if you are a level 4, a new grad, or junior engineer, that's probably all you're getting. The fourth category is system design. And I'm going to talk about how I do system design. This is not something that I say everyone should do this. No, we'll go over LP next. This is how I do system design. So this is not me saying it's right. This is not me saying that you should do this. This is saying this is one example. This is how I do it. And the reason I do it is because this is how I do big systems, big platforms at Amazon. Did we lose? What? I don't know what that means. Glorious, you still hear me? Gopher?
Yep, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know what did we lose means then. Anyway, all right, system design. Let's move to that. How I do system design is I do it all via microservices. You could tell me about how you're going to create a load balancer, and then you're going to pass in, you're going to create an API, go to a load balancer, which goes to a bunch of servers, which you have N+2 servers for scalability, or you can do what I do and just say I created a Lambda function, a 40-line Lambda function that is elastic, scales elastically. So it is something that I don't have to worry about geolocating. I don't have to worry about scalability because it just works. That being said, understand why it works because they will ask you why it'll work that way. If you can't do it, that sucks. Yeah, AWS has Elastic Load Balancer for Kubernetes instances and anything else. So what I will usually do is say, okay, I am the client. I will call a secure endpoint, which will go through an auth server, which will, or a auth thing, which will go to a server to validate that my certificate works, which will then go to a VPC, which locks all the functionality inside of a secure virtual private cloud on AWS. Then that will call a Lambda function, which will call the database, fetch the data, return it to the client. It auto scales because it's elastic, and it does that. And then it'll be a individual AWS function, individual service that can be called by those who you authenticate to call it. And then for the bigger system, I'll be like, all right, here's a state machine, AWS step functions, a state machine, which will include every small microservice that I covered. It'll call it through the authentication service. It'll have retry logic. If it fails, it'll go to the fail state and alert the user. Everything through these are logged through CloudWatch. And then at the end, it'll just notify through AWS SNS. It's cheating. It really is. It's really easy and it's really straightforward to do serverless applications on your microservice. You don't have to worry about all the bigger things, but you do need to know the pros and cons. For example, Lambdas need to ramp up if you're not continuously calling them, and as a result, they cost more. But they're very easy to maintain, and they're very easy to just update because they're like 20 to 40 lines of code total. So, basically, with all that, you just create this big microservice architecture. You take all the smaller microservices, create a state machine, plug and play, return, and say, this is my service. And then you just have some sort of user layer that interacts with this. That's how I do it. That is how I recommend people do it, but that is not the only way of doing system design questions. So, any questions on system design before we move on? I'm currently an embedded software engineer with no experience designing microservice distributed systems. Do I state that I have If you're interviewing for a software engineering 2 or SDE 2, you do need to know how to do system design. You need to handle problems that could scale up, and you need to be able to handle things that could fail at scale and how they fail and how to handle that. You can't just say, I don't do system designs, because that is something we evaluate SDE 2s and 3s and on.
But would it, for example, be correct to assume that, say, Amazon could down level someone coming in to
The
say
level
SD
4,
to say SD1 if they lack that like soft like system design chops despite say years of experience if they were coming from a different field?
so I would not go into an interview assuming that you're going to get down leveled. If you don't know how to do system design and you come into the interview for an SD 2 and you just say, I don't know how to do system design, please down level me in the interview, that's not going to go very well. You could just apply for level 4, and that's what I would recommend. If you don't do very well, we can evaluate at level 4 and down level, but that's not a guarantee because the team you're interviewing for may not have that spot, so we may not consider a down level. Payne, no, this is for Amazon. Amazon does interviews all the same way for back-end SDs. I don't dock points for getting names wrong unless you get entire functionalities wrong. But yeah, yeah. I mean, you'll look silly on the system design, but you might be considered for a down level. No down level is guaranteed. If you fail at your system design, don't assume you'll get down leveled. It is a possibility, but it's not guaranteed. Oh, I forget to ask if we want to down level sometimes. I don't look at your resume after you get to the interview. I don't consider your resume. I don't consider your resume in the debrief unless we absolutely have to. Um, that could be with down level discussions, but besides that, I don't consider what experience you have versus how you practice. You're not a college grad. I mean, how much experience do you have? Uh, you could have 2 to 3 years of experience. You'll be evaluated probably as a 2. You could be a 1. If you have 5, they may not consider you. Yeah. We don't have any more questions on this. This is the technical part. You will have 4 interviews for backend, and those will be the 4 categories. Front end will have their own categories. Sometimes they overlap, like logical and maintainable. Uh, there's some problem solving, and from what I've experienced as a bar raiser and solve front end, it's usually front end technology that you're evaluating and like converting HTML to something. That's all I can say because that's all I know. All right. Let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, leadership principles. Yeah. So leadership principles, people are think these are these big scary things that fail you. They're not. They can fail you, and I've personally said no to someone because they sucked at LPs. But here's the thing: Star, they tell you Star, that's not always the case. I want to know a small overview of what is going on. Then I want to know what you did. And then I want to know what your participation resulted in. So, hey, my team or my customers needed this. I did this to help the customers. As a result, the customers got this and we saved X amount of money. Um, so the big part is what you did. Don't come in and tell me, hey, our team did this, our team did this, our team did this. And after 20 minutes, then it's kind of like, what did you do? Don't leave me guessing on what your responsibility of the leadership or the projects are. The other key is don't use the same example multiple times. I've had someone come in and fail just because they did awesome with the problems, the functional competencies, and then they told every interviewer the same exact scenario. It was kind of like, what exactly did you do? You did this one project, and that's all you did your entire career. Uh, that's bad. Don't use the same example. And the other key is come up with examples that match the level you're interviewing for. Don't tell me that you fixed a bug in a system when you're a senior engineer. Like, come up with a big architectural design where you said, "Hey, I worked with customers. I gathered data and came up with requirements and worked with PMs on different requirements. And then as a result, I built this PRFAQ or this design doc. I went through design review. Then I did a full blown system based on a state machine. I built a bunch of Lambda functions to make sure that it was easily maintainable by multiple teams or anyone taking over after me. And then as a result, I pushed it out to the customers to try with a proof of concept. Got very good feedback, except for this area. This area we improved based on their feedback in this way. And as a result, we pushed it to production and we saved the current process. We brought the current process down from 18 months to 2 days of work. Um, that last part, true story. But there's a lot of details. There's, hey, I started with this problem. Here's how I interacted with customers. Here's how I dealt with designing and coming up with the design and what I needed to do. Here's how I communicate with the customers and the interested parties as a result. Here's how I built it. Here's why I built it the way I did. Here's the pros and cons of that. And then here's the result. Here's the feedback I got. Here's how I did that feedback. And here's the final result based on that feedback. It's a story. Tell a story of how you did something really cool for that leadership principle. Again, base it on your level that you're interviewing for. Don't tell me all level 4. Level 4 is basic things. Hey, I saw the bug. I did this. I implemented this one part of this thing. And level 5 is I designed this platform and I built it. It's also how in depth you go and how big the design is, the system is. It's not always that case either. I mean, there's learn to be curious. So you need to showcase examples where you not only learned something new, like one of the examples is, hey, tell me about a time you worked on something outside your area of expertise. It's okay for this project. We were using this infrastructure, which I had no idea how to do. So I took some time to learn how to use this infrastructure and this language. And as a result, the be curious part, I noticed that we were struggling with this. So I was curious why that was the case. So I did a little bit of a diving into it and see if there was an alternative that we could use instead. I designed a proof of concept around that alternative and showcased everyone, and now we used it. That's an example of both learning and the curiosity side of learn and be curious. The other example is disagree, have backbone, disagree, and commit. It's easy to disagree. It's a little more hard, a little more difficult to commit to something. And there's 2 examples: disagree and commit. There is, I disagreed. I showcased why I disagreed. I showed data. That's the key. Show data why you disagreed. Don't just tell me you disagreed. That's it. And either I convinced the team or my coworker to go with my solution and we committed to that solution, or we collectively decided to stick with the original decision, and I committed to helping that decision. The key is committing to whatever's next, whether that is I convinced them to go with my way or we're going with the other way. If you just don't commit to it, you just say okay, whatever, and walk away. That's not committing. So that may be disagreeing, but that's not committing. So you need both. Um, so yeah, TLDR so far, come up with unique examples for each one. Tell a story. Tell how you were involved, what your involvement entitled to or did for your projects. How are your projects bar raising for the level you're interviewing for? Uh, and then don't use the same example every time. I've said a lot. Are there questions? Anyone lost so far? I see one person that said they're lost. I mean, it's not just for L4s. It's let's see, Amazon leadership principles. Oh, one thing that fails a lot of people is invented simplify. Talk about a time that you took a very complex thing and simplified it via something straightforward. I took a massive platform that was taking 18 months of work per thing to implement. And I made a very simple state machine with Lambda functions that were easily maintained and brought it down to 2 days of work for each thing. And I could tell you, well, I can't tell you, but I could tell people that I was interviewing with, hey, here's what I did to make it a very simple thing. I invented this cool, simplistic thing that brought down this really complicated thing into something easy, and it brought down the time it took to implement something new features, new implementations of it as a result. Anyway, leadership principles. What is important for software engineers? Customer obsession, ownership, learn to be curious, insist on the high standards. That's a big one. Think big. Uh, earn trust. That's a big one, especially with customer obsession. Dive deep and have backbone, disagree, and commit. Those are for level 4. Level 5, I would add deliver results, are write a lot, invent and simplify, and think big. And L6 as well. Interns have some different ones. I mean, Payne, tell me why Lambda is a bad thing. Like, tell me why writing 20 lines of code to bring a new microservice to the platform is a bad thing. And why is it not good to have an example where you could just say, "Hey, I did this very simple thing and it solved a massive problem." That's the key. Is lambdas are great for solving things like that. Um, do you expect your candidates to review the LPs, try to check them off? Some people try to guess what the LP is. You can even ask. Some interviewers will tell you, but don't try to guess. Don't try to say your LP is this, so I'm going to evaluate it as this. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes I'm actually talking about earns trust, and I'll ask a question and be like, "Hey, when you got feedback from a customer, what did you do?" And what I'm evaluating is how you handled the feedback and how you earn the customer trust by solving that feedback. I'm not evaluating customer obsession, but it may appear that way because I said customer 50 times. Am I missing anything so far, Gopher? Any questions that I missed?
I think you've been answering the main ones. Yeah, I think we're good here. although leadership principles are they're the kind of the soft portion of the Amazon interview, right? They're
Yeah,
infinitely, like, you can ask infinite questions about them, and
yeah,
probably depending on who you ask, you'll get an infinite set of answers. So it's yeah, it's
yeah,
an we can't exhaust this topic in our little 2-hour event.
yeah. Keep in mind, like I said before, LPs always have different examples for every LP. Do not answer the same example with multiple interviewers. I will fail you. Um, yeah, that's a big one. Uh, Prepare examples to the LPs that are for the level you are interviewing. If you go in, if you go into the interview and you knock out the coding, you do okay with system design, and then give me all level 4 examples for the LPs. And I go into a debrief as a bar raiser, and all I see is level 4 examples. I will not say yes. I have almost vetoed a hiring manager because they wanted to move forward, even though there was no level 5 examples. I will down level to a level 4 if you tell me all L4 examples, because that's the appearance that I get from you. I don't get the appearance that you are a level 5. However, I already mentioned that. I would recommend go through the recording on that. Otherwise, we're going to be here for a while repeating. Is non CS examples a couple, but don't do everything for non CS. Yeah, like disagree and commit could be a non CS example, but if you're going for CS, don't say no CS. Like, I want to see that you delivered big projects. I want to see that you were able to work with the customer, deliver a big project, and build on it. I don't want to see that, hey, I stopped a customer from being something. Or I did this with no CS examples. I'd probably say 80% or more should be as a software engineer examples. How about new grads without experience? What do you mean? You do projects, right? You work on class projects, right? You work in groups. Uh, you work with people you disagree with all the time. If I remember anything about college, half the time in a group you're disagreeing with each other and fighting. How did you handle that? Like, you should have a ton of projects from school and a ton of side projects you worked on. Well, customer may not apply too much in that case, but a lot of times people have internships where they do have customers. They have school projects where they do have customers. It may not be a lot of examples, but you should still have some. I am probably going to move on because we're about 40 minutes in. I'm going to talk about the process and the scary parts and clarify some things. Specifically, we'll talk about the pre-brief, debrief, and interviews. So we start with a pre-brief. We go over all the LPs that the hiring manager is looking for. You're being evaluated to work for a specific team, and that hiring manager may have requirements over others. So they may have bias for action more than they will have anything else. They may not care about deliver results. They may just be a team that fixes bugs. So that may not be their highest priority. So the hiring manager will give 3 to 4 key LPs to the bar raiser to make sure is evaluated and make sure is important and is covered during the debrief. Um, so I cannot tell you specifically, here are the LPs you're going to get, or here are the important LPs. It's team specific. One thing we also consider is, can we down level you for that team? If they don't have a position for you, we can't down level you. I can recycle you to do another team, but I can't down level you for that team. if they don't have the spot. So they may only be looking for level 5. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That's the pre-brief, and then we ask each other, or I ask what everyone's questions are, just to make sure we don't repeat any technical questions. And I also make sure that bar raising for that level. And then post interview, everyone writes their feedback. They write it separately. They do not talk to anyone else until they're done writing feedback. That's an attempt to keep everything as unbiased as possible. Then the bar raiser will go through everyone's feedback and make sure there's nothing biased in there. There's nothing like, hey, I suspect this person's going to be bad because of X, with no data supporting it. Or they'll be like, hey, due to this, they're probably not going to be good. Again, with no data, or even worse, they may show really bad bias, and that's when I report to the bar raising core. Yeah, the bar raiser is your best friend in a interview. Believe it or not, it's because we make sure everything is unbiased. We make sure that no one is holding anything against you, that you're not being treated unfairly, and that you're not being evaluated unfairly. If any of those are true, then we bring that up to the people who are going to do something about it. But we do not hold that against you. And we make sure in the debrief that none of that is held against you. So you will always get a fair, unbiased debrief. And you'll always get a fair and unbiased evaluation to make sure that you're the right candidate or you're not. That's why part of the reason why the bar raiser is your best friend. They'll also look for data when the interviewers are not giving you data. They're not giving you a ton of feedback, and they're just saying blah. Zach, why did you do that? Someone needs to mute Zach. Yeah. Anyway, blah. If they give you nothing, then I have to dig into their feedback. I have to figure out if you're bar raising based on that feedback and if you're doing something. So again, your bar raiser, believe it or not, as scary as they sound, are your best friends in the debrief. They are the ones making sure that if you are qualified, you're getting a fair experience at an interview and a spot. Yeah. Also, the bar raiser is not, there is no bar raising interview. There's an interview that the bar raiser does, but it's just another interview. It's a normal interview. That being said, the bar raiser is usually one of the most experienced interviewers there. So they're the ones that are probably going to dig more than anyone else. They're going to ask you tougher questions. They're going to dive into it more than anyone else would. And if you're curious, the bar raiser is usually someone that's not on the team you're working for, and they're the ones that are sometimes asking only leadership principle questions. Sometimes they'll ask technical ones as well, but yeah. To answer the question of what a bar raiser is, it's the person who is responsible for making sure that you, as the candidate, well, multiple things. I already explained that you get a fair and unbiased interview and chance, but also they're the ones that make sure that you are better than 51% or better than 50% of the people on the team at your level. So I asked the question, is this person better than 50% of the people that you know at this level? And if the answer is no, we don't hire. So anyway, that's what a bar raiser is. Then we go into the debrief. Again, there's 4 or 5 of us. We spend a few minutes reading everyone's feedback, and if everyone's feedback is unbiased and good, I, as the bar raiser, will facilitate the meeting. I will go to every person and I'll ask questions about their feedback. I'll ask questions about their experience with the interviewer. And I'll ask, hey, based on everyone's feedback and what you have seen with the feedback, do they raise the bar? Are they better than 50% of the people you know at this level? Um, and they provide a yes or no. Believe it or not, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, most of their votes don't matter. Um, every person, the only two people's votes that actually matter are the hiring managers and the bar raisers. Everyone else could say no, and it doesn't matter. It is not a democracy in that debrief. It only comes down to two people. Um, but that data is important to consider for the hiring manager. The hiring manager needs to know everything. So that's why we go through and we go around the room and ask for feedback. We ask for any red flags, anything. And here's the thing, you may fail something like the problem solving question, but you may do well, and I may see data with other interviewers. And then I could say, okay, he may not have done great with this problem solving question, but I saw problem solving examples with the other interviewers. So could we consider this a success for this interview, even though they failed the specific one? So the bar raiser will actually go person by person and grab data that applies to other people's interviewers that could be negative and see if they could offset that negative vote to a positive one based on feedback that other people saw, or vice versa. But usually, uh, it's kind of a weighted thing. It's like based on what everyone has seen, could we consider this one field positive? Yeah. Um, so together we decide, or together we bring data and help me as the bar raiser decide if you raise the bar or not. So there's two votes. There's the hiring manager that says, yes, I want to hire, or no, I don't want to hire. If the answer is no, we end the debrief right there. The answer is yes, then the vote goes to me. And that's when I say, yes, this person raised the bar, or no, they didn't. If I say yes, which I will agree 95% of the time with the hiring manager, then you get an offer. If I say no, that's considered a veto and you don't get hired at that level. So, yes, I had the ability to veto a yes hire. No, I cannot veto a no hire. I cannot get you hired when the hiring manager says no. I know a lot of people want that to be the case. So the hiring manager decides whether or not you'll get hired. I just say yes, they raised the bar or not. Yeah, that probably sounds scary. It's not. Most of the time, again, I agree with the hiring manager. Only once have I considered vetoing, and I had another hour and a half debrief with the hiring manager and a couple other people to get the correct data, so I didn't have to veto. Thankfully, I didn't, but I can. Um, so that's the debrief. We basically come together, share all of our data, and we look for level based data. Again, SDE2 if you're interviewing for an SDE2. And we come together and try to find data that showcases that you raise the bar for that level and that role. If you don't, and the hiring manager says no, we can consider to down level, but that doesn't always happen. It's not a guaranteed down level. It's not even a guarantee to evaluate whether or not you down level. So that's a debrief. And then, so there's four outcomes. There's yes, we're going to hire. No, we're not going to hire. But let's cycle them for another job. There's another one is we're going to down level. And alternatively is no, we're not going to hire. How long are we going to recycle for? What a recycle means is how long until we can reach out to this candidate and they can interview again. No recycle means 2 years, and only way to come in before 2 years is for the bar raiser to give the okay. If they don't, you can't come back for 2 years. there's an immediate recycle, which means, yeah, go ahead and pass them to a different team. I think they did okay. They're just not right for this team. Um, then there's between 6 and 18 months, usually 6 months that they're really good. They're really close, but they're not there. Their 12 months is they're and 18 to no recycle if they're just bad. I say no recycle quite a bit, but again, that's as I talked before. Those are people who usually fail for dumb reasons, like they write bad code, the code that doesn't make any sense, non-readable code, or they don't consider edge cases, or they need hints a lot. Um, if you fail horribly, you get a no recycle, which means you're not allowed to come back for 2 years. There is no uh, there is no situation where you cannot come back. There is no number of times where you fail and you can't come back. You can always come back and interview. Um, I are there any questions so far? Gopher, feel free to pick any out.
I mean, there's a number of them. Like most
Yeah,
recently, like yeah, there's I mean, what we could do is now start moving
yeah,
on to the Dory questions.
yeah. We're about an hour in, so we could move to Dory. If you haven't submitted your questions on Dory or upvoted, please do them now. We'll give you a couple minutes, and then we'll start answering those.
Right.
Um,
So I guess we can start going kind of down the list. Oh, a question just
yeah, that's why we should give it a couple minutes in case some go to the top,
right. Well,
or we can archive them.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
there seems to be one now that's like at the top of the vote. So I guess we could start with
oh,
that. And
so how is leveling determined? I don't know if you want to ask the questions. I'll leave that to you, but I already asked this one. How is leveling determined? You apply wow, that already went down. You apply to the job at the level you want. So your recruiter will put you in for a specific level. They'll find you a job and a team that is hiring for that level. So the team you're interviewing for needs the headcount for that level. Uh, so we evaluate at the level that you apply for, basically. And down leveling is if there's a down level spot on that team, or if we need to recycle immediately for L minus one. It's very rare to up level, especially since you need all interviewers to be at L plus one to up level you. So I think I'm good with that question. Let's see if this archives it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
don't. Okay,
does.
so you can archive. I don't think I have permission for that. So cool.
Yeah.
All right, let move on. So this question, I can never make it past the resume screening. How do I make sure I get an interview? Uh,
Fix your
y-
resume.
yeah, it's I don't at that at that point of the process, it's not even like the bar raiser that's looking at your resume, right? It's
Yeah.
HR and the recruiters.
It,
So I would
yeah.
invite you to maybe ask for a resume review in our resume review channel. Perhaps you can get some good tips there.
Yep. If you don't get past the center round, then fix the round. And in this case, if you don't get past the resume round, fix your resume.
Right. Okay. So I guess we can move on to the next one. I think this one was largely already answered. So does Amazon still have a bar raiser interview? Obviously,
No,
yes. Yeah.
no, there's no bar raiser interview. It is there's a bar raiser interviewer.
Interviewer, right. So that
There is no bar raiser interview. It is a regular interview that is conducted by the bar raiser. It is no different than any other interview.
right. So already and like how does one prepare for them? Well, they're just a regular interview, so
Yeah, how you prepare for the bar raising part is you provide bar raising examples. You provide examples where uh, that you provide examples for the level you're interviewing for, and then you provide how you did great with them and how you improved the process or how you did great with that thing. And if you have good examples and you do well on coding, then chances are you raise the bar. If you are interviewing for level 5 and you only provide level 4 examples, you don't raise the bar. So provide examples at the level that you're interviewing for. Not everything has to be at that level, but don't provide this. Well, first of all, don't provide the same example to everyone, but also don't provide all examples at L-1 if you're trying to interview for L. Alternatively, provide examples at L+1 if you can. That showcases really good bar racing.
All right, I guess we can move on to next question. Ooh, one just jumped right up. All right. What separates a good engineer from a grade 1, especially in the bar raiser? Alternatively, how does a motivated non-big N engineer break into big N?
So those are two questions basically. The first
Right.
one is you do the basics. You do basics like testing. You do basics like validating the question is actually what you think it is, and then you consider edge cases. You consider how the customer is going to interact with your problem and how you want them to be able to handle things like exceptions and errors. Is all right, this is going to fail because of this. So I'm going to return a 0. That's bad. What you want to do is, okay, this is going to fail here. So I'm going to throw an exception that tells me a very detailed exception on where it went wrong and why it went wrong. Um, some cases, that's custom exceptions. It's create a custom exception that says, all right, throw new, I provided a bad value exception for this thing. And then put in the service name so they know exactly what service it's coming from. Um, the more detailed, the more readable you could get, more maintainable you could get. That's how I evaluate a great engineer from a good one. How does a motivated non-big N engineer break into a big N? Study and interview? Um, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. Like, there's no special difference between a big N and not a big N. The only thing that could be different is usually big N has to work at scale. The problems they're solving usually reach more people. So you might have to consider bigger systems and more scalable systems. But um, we're not special. We're not these magical beasts that are better than everyone else. So in order to get into a big end company, you just study. You learn how to do the interview process, and then you do it. I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, that seems like a fine answer. Moving on to the next one. This is another kind of multi-part question. I believe the second part, which other criterias are being evaluated aside from the actual resulting solution to an LC problem during the technical interview. I believe that was already kind of covered. Things like
Yeah, that was
clarifying
pretty.
questions and yeah, and the like.
Yeah, that was covered a lot. Yeah, ask questions, understand the question. For LPs, make sure your questions are either at the level or above the level you're interviewing for. Make sure they're good questions. So don't tell me what your team did. Tell me what you did and how your effort affected the final result.
Right. One part of the question I think is a bit more interesting is how are the leadership principles evaluated like outside of the actual like quote unquote LP questions, right, or behavioral questions, if they are
um,
at all.
no, I mean they're basically evaluated during those LPs. Some questions may have different LPs, and sometimes interviewers will straight up say, "Hey, I got some data from this that showcase good examples of Ernst Trust, for example." So if I see earned trust, I'll mark it in the notes and say, hey, I saw a couple good examples of earned trust if you need it. But we don't evaluate LPs outside LPs. The exception is when it's bad. So if you come in and you have a terrible attitude, obviously that showcases a bad LP, and we're gonna talk about it. But we're gonna discuss a lot more of the terrible attitude, if anything.
Right. All right. I think we can move on now. The next question would be tips for students that aspire to be SD interns. Uh,
I don't really know on that, to be honest. That I think you guys go through a few OAs and then you talk with someone who makes sure that you know what you're talking about, and then they say yes or no. I think the key is just to have a good resume and then practice and perfect the OAs.
all right. Fair enough. And I think the next question is, what matters most in the resume. I think that's a little bit outside the scope
Yeah,
for
I
current
don't I
event.
don't know what to tell you there. I don't do resumes. I don't read them. I don't read them for an interview. I couldn't care less what you put in a resume. As long once you get to me, your resume means nothing.
Yeah.
Granted, other people may read the resume. That is not guaranteed that no one will read your resume.
Right. Well, speaking as an interviewer, like I do take a look at a resume for the that intro portion of the interview, which is not necessarily applicable at Amazon, where you just kind of ask about their background. Uh, that can be cool, but yeah, not
Oh, yeah. So a couple of small notes. A couple of things I missed. LPs could be very specific questions, or we could pick something from your background. You could say, "Hey, I worked on this really cool project," and I'll say, "All right, let's dive into that project," and I'll talk about this deliver results, or how you held the highest standards during that project, or how you integrated with the customers. If something sounds cool, I might dive into it because I want you at your best. And if you're really excited to talk about a project, I'm gonna go with that over some random specific questions that try to dive into it. Uh, that being said, again, for me personally, I actually don't really care what you say when I ask you, tell me about yourself. What I treat it as is, can I pick up a certain example that I could use for an LP, or 95% of the time, I want you to just talk until you're no longer anxious, until you're no longer worried about the interview. I want you to spend those 5 minutes just relaxing before we get started.
yeah. There's definitely something to be said about just kind of talking about that. I mean, oftentimes, you talked about your background. It's kind of a bit of a canned elevator pitch, right? So just getting
Yeah.
talking, getting getting kind of fired up a little bit. That helps a lot.
No, if you want to come in and say, tell me about yourself, and you want to spend 5 minutes talking to me about flying, I'll do that for 5 minutes. If it helps you calm down and get relaxed for the interview, I'm all for it.
Right. Absolutely. I guess we can move on to the next question now. Which is a little bit outside the scope of the event, but still interesting. So, how, if at all, are the leadership principles seen in your day to day work?
LPs are a very big part of Amazon. It is. We don't evaluate you for, I forgot what it's called, but whether or not you fit into a team. We evaluate our LPs are tell us, how do you fit into the Amazon ecosystem. The most important LP ever, no matter who you ask, will answer the same way, is customer obsession. Everything we do at Amazon starts with the customer. Can this help the customer? What does the customer need? What do they want? Where are we failing the customer? And then we work backwards from that customer. We work backwards from the requirement they're asking and work backwards to a design doc an implementation that satisfies the customer needs, no more, no less. We don't try to over exaggerate what they need. We don't try to guess what they need. We take data and we say the customer needs this based on the data. Customer obsession is everywhere at Amazon. It always is. It always will be. Um, for developers, invent and simplify. SD twos and threes. That's big for them. Insist on higher standards. That's everywhere um, for engineers. Ownership. They also come in a lot when it comes to promotion and evaluations and things like that. You're evaluated based on your ability to work towards those LPs. Yeah, so it's big. Everything you do should be around something, some LP. Granted, you're not always going to be, you're very little going to be working towards frugality as an engineer, but someone is. Yeah, hopefully that answers that. Gopher, did we lose you?
Oh, hello. Okay, was using the wrong push to talk key. Interesting. Uh, yeah. So I was just saying that the leadership principles, like, there's a number of them that are, I mean, very obviously applicable universally. Like,
Yeah,
as a software engineer, no matter what company you're at.
yeah,
So obviously you're going to live and breathe them no matter what. I mean, ideally.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on now to the next question, which is uh the percentage. Okay, so this is kind of just a data question. So, like, the percentage of people who get rejected during resume screening, I'm guessing that's not something you really
Yeah, I
have
have no
access to.
idea.
Uh, but then,
That
percentage of
that
reject. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
that question came up when I was talking about the Google ones. That's because it was public and it's something we were told there. We're not told this. I don't know what percentage get denied or rejected or anything anywhere. Um, any part of this question, I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, the other parts are like, percentage rejected at OA. I guess that's also not something you have, but
Yep,
perhaps percentage rejected at on-site. Uh, and
I have no idea.
no, well, I
that
mean, you can maybe the percentage you personally like say no to is in your position as a bar
yeah,
raiser.
but the problem is there's I cannot I don't have the same percentage as someone else. I could tell you that hey, I failed 95%. I could very well just have bad luck with candidates, or maybe my org just has bad luck with bringing in candidates, and other orgs don't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's I don't know. I cannot tell you, hey, I see this percent and guarantee that this percent is the case. So I don't want to answer that question because it may lead people to a false perception of how many people fail.
Right. Well, that's fair enough. I guess we can move on to the next. Now, this is a referral question, again, a bit outside of the scope of the event, and also probably not information you really have access to, like
So
things like how it affects negotiating.
So referrals do not help beyond the initial interview. They don't help in interviews. They don't help with the debrief. We will never consider referrals. Um, they help you get your foot in the door. Now, I don't know the answer for bonuses, so I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I don't think they're considered when negotiating.
All right. Okay. Well, next one. Does an applicant move a higher level if they answer all the questions to the point? Okay, so basically, is it possible to be up leveled? Is how I would summarize that one, which we already
I've only
covered.
Yeah, I've only ever considered one person as an up level, and we said no. It's required multiple things. It's are all the questions being asked considered to be level plus one? So are you being asked questions at the level above the one you're evaluating at? Is everyone part of the loop at L plus one at least? And do we need more data? Are we missing anything? For example, uh, level 4 to level 5. If you didn't do a system design question, we can't consider you level 5 without system design. So we may come back and do a phone screen to get the missing data for L plus 1, but up leveling rarely happens.
Okay, now, uh, of course, every interviewer wants a rockstar candidate, but during the interview, if we boil it down to what truly matters, what do interviewers really want to see in a new grad candidate?
Well,
Uh,
I don't want to see rockstar candidates because that's a different company.
right. It's especially from new grads. I mean, there's a set of expectations are is a little bit
no,
different, right?
no,
But
I think you missed the pun. Rockstar is a different company.
right. uh,
Sorry, I cut you off. There's more to this question.
Great. So, yeah, tag question. Let's say new grad candidate stumbled a bit on the coding portion of the interview, and you may be leaning towards rejection in your mind. Do you have examples of something that candidate did said or said later on to sway you back towards considering them for the position?
Um, so what do interviewers really want to see in a new grad? Again, it's per level. So we want to see new grad level examples. So we're going to be looking for examples that you did in college or maybe side projects. And really only that for new grads. So we're not going to be looking for you to invent and simplify a massive project. We're not going to be looking for someone who comes in and takes this complicated project and then reduces it to something very simple and efficient and easy to maintain. That's usually the level 5, level 6 stuff. So we don't really expect that. But what we do really expect is that you do better than most other candidates when it comes to data structures and algorithms. New grads should be better than almost every other applicant when it comes to those because that's all you study in college. You study data structures and algorithms. I cannot tell you, I cannot do most LeetCode questions perfectly anymore. I don't know data structures and algorithms to an extent that you will as a new grad. So it really depends on what you're supposed to know when you do. Um, New grad stumbled a bit on the coding portion. Again, like I mentioned, one interviewer does not fail you. In fact, I've had a split loop. I've had 2 no's, 2 yeses, and we ended up hiring. Um, it really comes down to with everyone's data, did you bring enough data to showcase raising the bar for that level? So if you failed data structures and algorithms and other people have examples where you did great with data structures and algorithms, I'm going to pull that data and say, hey, overall, it looks like that person did pretty good with data structures and algorithms. They just had a hiccup here. Um, First of all, before we move on, ZYZZ said something along the lines of, does age matter with a new grad? No, not at all.
I
I don't
mean,
care. I don't
isn't
look at your age.
isn't it even straight up illegal for an employer to ask
Yes.
a candidate's age? So, like, that shouldn't be
Yes.
a question at all.
It's an illegal question. I don't consider your age or anything else. And I don't care how old you are. I started late. Uh, Peter in the chat started late. We're both veterans, and we both started late into our 20s. And I think he was 30 starting out. Age doesn't matter. It's can you do the job?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
anyway, any parts that I missed of this question?
I mean, it was a bit multi-part, but I think you covered the
Yeah.
essence of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, in a debrief, we consider all feedback at once. So we consider if everything is, we consider all of our bullet points in it, whether or not everything together is a higher. Um, that's it. All right.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, now the next one is how do newer programmers have a chance at Amazon? Uh,
Ask questions. Get a mentor. First of all, the first thing you should ever do at Amazon before anything else is get a mentor. Get two mentors. I don't care. At least one. Um, do not try to succeed at any company without a mentor. And that's not Amazon. That's every company. Get a mentor. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah, I'm good with that, Pete, by the way. Um, so mentors are the best way to succeed. Secondly, ask questions. Um, we want you to succeed. So when something isn't working, spend a little bit of time on it. Ask a quality question. I think there's a website that tells you exactly how to ask a question and learn from it. Learn from the people who have been there before you. That's how you succeed. There's no how do new programmers take have a chance at Amazon. It's how do I succeed at Amazon? You have a chance already. Like use it. Like you have everything that could make you a good engineer at Amazon right at your fingertips. Just use your resources.
Right, and this is, I think, valuable for pretty much a new programmer at any org, right? It's use the resources that are available to you. Use like the people around you and your team will want to help you, so take advantage of that. And I guess now moving on, when you at what point during an interview, uh, for like an algorithm like leak code type question, would you interrupt the candidate's kind of flow as they're solving the problem to start asking follow up questions? And if you do reach that point, does that mean that essentially the bar hasn't been met? Or
So, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
So, being interrupted doesn't mean anything. I interrupt people all the time. My goal as an interviewer is to get enough data to say that yes, you raised the bar at this level. If you continuously talk and you provide a bunch of fluff and you're not telling me anything, I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to ask you more questions to dive more into that data until I get all the data that I need to say yes. Um, Being interrupted means nothing. It just means that you're not giving me what I need to data wise, and then I'll give you hints how to give me that data. So interrupting doesn't mean you fail at all. It happens. Some interviewers are not as good at it, so they may let you keep talking, but I'll interrupt anyone.
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Let's see. Can you talk about stress and the mental pressures Amazon developers might face? Technically, a
Nope.
bit outside of the scope of the
Yeah,
event.
it's so varied. Every developer, like every developer at Amazon, some of them may burn out, some of them may have the time of their life. I think once I worked more than 40 hours in a week. Like it is all org specific, it's all team specific. And if the team you join is giving you a lot of pressure, move on to another one that won't. Again, if yeah, this is per person per team, so I can't really answer that.
Okay. Now the next one is perhaps a bit more relevant. Can you give a step by step of what you want the interviewee to consider at each step of the technical interview? So I'm guessing this is kind of in context of you asked a technical problem. What are
Yeah.
yeah.
So a quick TLDR what I said earlier. So spend time reviewing what I said. Uh, they'll give you a question. Spend time understanding the question and what they're really asking. Ask questions to clarify it. Then ask questions on how on uh, edge cases. Consider edge cases and also implement those edge cases. Consider the different approaches, the pros and cons of each, and the time and space complexity, and then start writing code. Write clean code, write testable code, and when you get a new function or functionality, write a different function. Don't have a function that does multiple things. Only have one that facilitates all the other functions, and then test. Just kind of in that order. Write clean code, write maintainable code, and you should pass them all. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that does make a ton of sense. Now the next one, how big of a factor does luck have in resume screening and interviews? I mean, resume screening isn't really something
Yeah,
you're involved with, so
there's no luck in resume screening. If your resume isn't getting past the bar there, improve it. Again, your resume is on you. If you're not getting anywhere with it, fix it. Um, Interviews, I mean, I've always said that there's a chance that no matter who you are, there's a chance that you'll get 5 interviewers that will pass you. There's also a chance that you'll get 5 interviewers that will say no to you. The more you practice, the more you understand about the process and prepare, the less likely you'll get 5 interviewers that say no, and the more likely you'll get 5 interviewers that say yes. Um, yeah, yes, luck will have a chance, and no matter how prepared you are, there is that chance that you'll get interviewers that say no, and that sucks. I wish we had a process of eliminating all that, but we don't. Um, I don't think we had that anywhere really, especially for big companies. But you have the opportunity to limit how much luck plays into an interview.
right. So basically, there's always an elemental luck to everything, but you can make your own luck to an extent. So
Yeah,
hey, okay. Now, next question. To what extent are interviewers actively involved in the process of determining the initial offer's numbers? Now, I don't work at Amazon, but my instinct would be not at
zero.
all. Yeah,
Yeah, 0%. We don't do anything with the offer.
right. I mean, that's generally up to the purview of HR and like salary bands and things of that sort, right? So
Yep.
yeah, fair enough. Now, if a recruiter reaches out from a company you're interested in, but not for a team you're interested, this doesn't feel
Yeah,
like very within their
just
scope.
the recruiter wants you to work at Amazon. They look at your background and see if you would be a good fit for the team they're recruiting for. But their ultimate goal is we want you to work at Amazon. So if the team they're asking you to interview with you don't like, just tell them. Be like, hey, do you have any other teams that are available? They'll work with you.
All right, cool. I actually didn't know that. So neat,
Yeah, they want you to work here.
cool. Yeah, I guess that is the big difference between like a third party recruiter versus like first party, right?
Yeah.
Uh oh, there was a bit of a shift. All right. Oh, and it shifted again. Okay,
how did
whatever.
how did I become a bar raiser? Good question.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that let's go
No.
with that one.
No, it's pretty simple. Just experienced. I interview a lot. I'm an experienced interviewer. I provide high quality feedback that makes a bar raiser's job easier. And I volunteered and I get referred. If you have to get referred and you have to meet a high feedback bar and high interview bar. Um, if that's the case, they'll approve you. They'll send you through bar raising training. You'll become a Brit for 3 months ish. You'll do a bunch of shadows and then you'll become a BR. It's pretty straightforward process. It's just not easy. You have to want to be a bar raiser. Otherwise, you're gonna hate it.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Pete just mentioned something. Yeah, one thing I said is important for candidates: volunteer across the board. Uh, get involved with everything. Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, definitely. And that's something that I've seen in my own career is that if you volunteer to do things, you'll get more and more responsibility. There's not generally a ton of people who are like, yes, I want to interview people, right?
Yeah.
So if you volunteer for that stuff, you'll get to do it, and you can,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's stuff like security engineers, people who evaluate the security of your app. Um, there's different things like that you could be part of. There's project bar racers where you evaluate a project and make sure it's raising the bar for the customers. Um, Again, it's all volunteer options. It helps you not with just your job, but also promotion as well.
Okay. Now the next one is what's the best way to get experience with big and scale to be able to hit the ground running without working at a begin? Uh, since that's kind of a lot of the experience of most people. They won't touch mega scale like you would find at Amazon or any other large company. Yeah.
That's tough because you cannot just spawn up a petabyte of data and work with it or an exabyte of data. Uh, it's really tough. You could practice theory. You could practice building microservices. Docker has a good way of doing it. You could build a microservice out of Docker images. It's practice, really. You cannot get the same experience if you're not actively doing it, but you can at least learn the concepts and learn the theory of it and be like, I would do this in this scenario. That's the best I think you could do. The alternative is to spend a little bit of money. Go to Amazon, download Wikipedia. I think they literally put up all of Wikipedia into an API you can download and do something with it. It'll be like $5 to do a 20,000 machine MapReduce for 10 seconds. So it's a little bit of money, but if you can't get real world examples, make up examples. Like like I said, Wikipedia has petabytes of data you could test against.
Huh,
But
that's actually an
bef-
interesting idea.
before I forget to say anything, close out your resources. Do not test it and leave it there running. You'll get a massive bill. Amazon will be mad at you. You'll call them up, probably crying. I'm not going to guarantee this, but there's been a lot of cases where someone accidentally, and I don't mean quotes, they actually accidentally just let their resources go in and they gave them a one-time waiver. Do not rely on that though. There's no guarantee that you'll get a waiver if you leave your stuff running.
That is very good advice because it has actually happened to me where I left some stuff running unattended in AWS, and yeah, not a good time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I hope that answers the question. It's a hard thing to get that experience without doing it. So there's ways to achieve it, but not perfect real world examples.
okay. Now the next question is a bit specific. It's about an Amazon warehouse worker that applied for an internal transfer to software development. Uh, do you have any input on that, or is it a
So
bit too out of scope?
first of all, that last part, Amazon accepts everyone. You won't be brought in as an intern unless you're still in school. But no, we accept everyone, not just former interns. We're always hiring. We have like 1.6 million people that work at Amazon, and we still can't hire enough. Everyone who wants to interview at Amazon likely will get a chance as long as their resume is good. And if you're doing an internal transfer, you'll probably have a better chance at getting in the door than anyone. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. You have a good chance of getting in the door to do an interview. Um, just study for it. Hell, reach out to me. I'll give you advice internally.
Cool. Yes. Let's see some CSCH networking at play here.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a CSCH internal Slack channel. Reach out to it.
amazing. Anyway, let's see. As an experienced applicant, how should I know which level to apply for? Also, is up leveling a thing? Well, we already covered that. It
Yeah,
is
we
a thing,
covered
but
up
it's
level.
rare.
Yeah. Apply for the level you want and you're qualified for. Work with the recruiter to figure out where you're interviewing for. I was probably in the boat where I should have been applied for a senior, because I was doing senior level work when I got there. So I wish I applied as a senior. So apply for the level you know you could get.
Which I suppose is true of any company, right? Just
Yeah.
have some
Well,
confidence and apply for.
no, some companies it's easier to up level. Amazon, it's not.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right. Moving on. Is difficulty level? I feel like we kind of. Yeah, we already kind of talked about
Um,
this a little bit.
yeah, I don't think we did. There is a little bit of an increase to every question. So every level, problem solving gets harder, and every level, actually, every level increase, every question gets harder except for logical and maintainable. You're still expected to have logical and maintainable code. The problem solving questions get harder for more senior engineers because we expect more out of you. The data structures and algorithms questions get harder the more senior you get because you study them less. uh, yeah, you're studying more as a new grad than you are as a senior engineer.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, data structures and algorithms questions are usually the same. You just may get evaluated differently at each level. By the way, there is no difference in years of experience. There's only what level you're interviewing for. If you're a 10-year experience level 5 or a 20-year one, you'll get the same level 5 questions. Or a 2-year for that matter.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Oh, a two year experience applying for L5 or like higher would be
I,
interesting, but
I was a
sure.
1-year level 5.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Uh,
Microsoft decided I was a mid level engineer with 1 year of experience.
I mean, that's been my experience so far as well. So, hey, it's doable. Uh,
Um, yeah. Oh, sorry. You're the question person.
yeah. So, like, moving on to the next one, and this is, I think, very universally applicable. What is your advice for nerves during interviews? I get nervous and ruins things. I think everyone gets nervous. So, yeah, let's go.
Funny enough, I don't. I love interviewers or interviews, but I'm probably a rare breed. Uh, Here's the thing: everyone gets nervous, like you said. Most people do. It's just how much nerves you have. The more experience you have interviewing, and I hate to say this, but some people will go to other companies to fail their interview to get over the nerves before they go to the companies that they want to work for. Um, Also, there are other things like you can meditate, you can breathe, you can do exercises to kind of help you over the nerves. I if you straight up tell me you're nervous and hey, I need 5 minutes to just take a quick breather, I'll give it to you. I don't want you to be nervous. Um, Use the break in between. Use the 5 minutes I ask you about yourself to kind of calm down. I cannot tell you how to get rid of all your nerves. I if you don't know how to do that, I can't tell you how to, but experience helps. The more also, this is going to sound a little bit narcissistic, but the more you enjoy talking about the stuff you've done, it also helps as well.
And I suppose also, like, moving on now into a world where most on sites are not really on sites anymore. It does give you the opportunity to kind of prepare for those rounds a little bit at
Yeah.
home. And if you need to do like
Oh,
yeah, if you need to run before your interview to be calmer, like you can do it now.
yeah.
So
On that note, you also had the opportunity to split up your interviews over 2 days now. Oh, I just did one over 3 days. Uh, you have the ability to split it up and not do everything in one day. Yeah. On
yeah,
that note, if you have a disability, you have the ability to ask for accommodations. do not be afraid to use those. If you need extra time or if you need an accommodation to do something, they will give it to you. We are more than happy to work with you on that.
Cool. Okay. Now, next question is a bit of a behind the scenes one. So, as Amazon issued some guidelines to help interviewers orient their choice of essentially algorithmic questions.
Yeah, that's asking internal questions. I can't answer that.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I guess we can move on. Uh, let's see. Can you give more examples of questions at each level? Now, not sure if they're meaning
Yeah.
like questions are like algorithmic questions, LP questions, or
So I think they're talking about each level of L4 to L6. Like level 4, I'll expect you to do like my problem solving question. I'll ask you to solve k nearest neighbors, but in the form of uh, something. Oh, in the form of, hey, Amazon, where shipping to houses? Tell me the k closest houses around the warehouse to ship to. Um, the basic one I expect in a level 4 to do is really just sort it, return the top K. I expect someone at a level 5 to dive into more about what happens when it fails and how to make it more efficient using a max heap. And I expect to get into more system design with level 6 and things like that. Yeah, Pete. So yeah, talk to your recruiter. Accommodations, you could get more time, you could get other things for disabilities that you have or something that needs more accommodations. They're more than happy to work with you. Um, sorry, I wanted to address that. I hope that answers that question though.
I think I think it does.
Yeah.
I think we can move on. Now there's a next one, which is, you know, are you a bar raiser full time? Do you do other things also at Amazon? I assume you do. Uh,
I no, I put 5 hours towards bar raising per candidate. And I do a max of two a week. The exception is when they really need someone for a 4-person pod, and then I'm spending half the week on bar raising. My manager doesn't like it. No manager likes when their employee is doing 4 or 20 hours of bar raising. Um, no one is a permanent bar raiser. Permanent as in full time bar raiser.
right,
They
right, where
they they do their job first, and then bar raising second.
right, absolutely, that makes sense. Okay, now there's this one about do you check GitHub projects or blog posts for person for considering them?
No.
Yeah, that's what I expected. All right, that's pretty simple answer. How much technical background do hiring managers typically have?
Hopefully they have a bunch, but they don't always do. I hope hiring managers and managers have a technical background, but I don't know if that's a requirement. I don't. That also varies per person. Sometimes they're the least experienced person in the room. Sometimes they're the most. I don't know.
Okay, and now this question that just got bumped up. I essentially okay. I'm wondering how to avoid being matched with a team that my skill set isn't good for. For example, being matched for a front end team where you don't have experience with it.
Your recruiter will tell you what team you're interviewing for. They'll tell you what team they're considering you for and what you'll be doing. And you get a chance to talk with the hiring manager beforehand if you're not sure. You could ask. Um, if at that point you're still interviewing for that team, that's your fault. You should be able to say, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this team. Can I interview for another one?"
Okay, and now the next question has is a bit interesting because I think there for some of the leadership principles, or maybe depending on how you interpret them, there can be kind of linked or related. So if if there's an LP question that is being asked to a candidate that you expect for a response that is compatible with a certain leadership principle, and they give an answer that is more compatible with another one, does that hurt their chances, or what happens then?
Your interviewer is responsible for getting the data expected for them out of you. If they ask you customer session and you're giving delivery results, they will stop you. They should stop you and ask you customer session questions. And if you keep going in another way, they'll stop you again and redirect that your feedback or your answers to what they're looking for. A good interviewer does that. Some of them will let you ramble on, and sometimes they get a lot of good feedback for the other LP, which is great. But they're supposed to be responsible for directing you to get the data they need. You shouldn't be worried about that.
Okay, cool. Now, so how do you ask for a mentor? I feel like that's a very
There's an
general
internal
question.
mentor. Yeah, there's an internal mentor site. You could go there. You can look for people outside your org. Do not find someone inside your org. Someone who's completely unbiased to your org, and just ask them. Go up to them. If they're on that site, they want to mentor you, and you just reach out and say, "Hey, are you still looking for a mentor?"
Or alternatively, outside of kind of the Amazon bubble ecosystem, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
my my mentor works for IMBD. It's a sub company for Amazon. Yeah,
Right, absolutely. Or you can even find potentially mentorship opportunities just right here on CSCH.
yeah. You
Uh,
do want someone who is a mentor to your company, though, to that knows how things work at that company and how
mhm.
promos and all that work. That being said, I have like 5 or 6 mentors. Like you don't need get more than one.
Right, absolutely. Learning from multiple people is generally best. You can get a wider exposure to different viewpoints. So, yeah. Now, for people who are currently employed at a non-big N, what kind of things should we be focusing on during our tenure here to direct our careers toward a big N position?
Real quick, Shannon or Shannon in chat. Yes, IMBD is part of Amazon. It is a subsidiary of Amazon. So yes, he is working for Amazon, but he works for IMBD. Sorry. So people who are you say the people who are employed for non-big N?
Yeah, so, people who want to go into a big N, but they don't have that experience yet. I feel we had a question that was a bit
Yeah,
similar.
we already covered that. It really comes down to the scale. Like work on system design and scale. Like work on how to handle big data and how to handle big systems in simple ways. That's really it. Everything else, just go over what I mentioned before.
Okay. I guess moving on. Now, okay. So this one is if you get down leveled and there are no slots for that lower level, is it really easy, hard to recycle and find a team that has slots for that lower level? I feel like in a org as large as Amazon, does that really happen that no one needs SD1s or SD2s?
The team you're interviewing for or the org may not be looking for SDE ones. Amazon probably is somewhere. Everyone's looking for SDE ones somewhere. They just may have a lot of new grads and not a lot of junior engineers
Mm-hmm.
that they cannot take any more on, so they're only looking for more experience. If that's the case, they can't take you, then we'll recycle immediately to find another team. And usually they'll just look at my feedback and talk to me and say, "Hey, are there any risk?" I say no, and we move on.
Okay. Now the next question. Uh, right. Okay. So parts of it aren't really a question. Okay. So the bar raiser interview itself. I mean, there's not really a bar raiser interview. There's a bar raiser interviewer. So we talked about that.
Yeah,
And they're not trying to test you for failure. but they're a good interviewer.
Yeah, I go into every interview with the assumption that you're going to pass. And if I'm doing LPs only, I'm likely going to pass you. I don't fail very many people on LPs. I only fail them really on technical questions. I do, though, occasionally if they're just bad. Um, I want you to pass on LPs. So I'm going to ask you hard questions. I'm going to ask you hard data questions that provide me the exact data that I need without the fluff. Uh, I'm very straightforward. I'm very straight to the point, and I don't let you spend time adding fluff to the question. If you do, I will cut you off and ask you a question to redirect you. Um, the more experienced the interviewer, the more they're usually like that. And unfortunately, bar raisers are usually the most experienced interviewers. So usually they're the ones that are going to be interviewing like that. They don't want to fail you. They're just looking for data, just like everyone else. And then in the debrief, they'll consider that data. I think that
Uh,
answers that.
yeah, I think that does. Yeah. Now who is the resume for then? I mean,
Recruiters.
HR, recruiters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, should we make sure the stories we prepare for each leadership principle also doesn't conflict slash compromise on any other leadership principle?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, for the most part. There are times where your earns trust example will say, "Hey, I could not deliver this because I was holding up standards. I wanted to make sure everything was tested, everything worked. Therefore, I pushed the delivery date out, and I worked with customers to make sure they understood what was going on, and I made sure that they were good with everything so far, and that everything was communicated. This shows earned trust, but on the other hand, it doesn't show deliver results. But if you're earning trust and you're not able to deliver results, that's fine as long as you have an example of delivering results. Most of the time, one will not compromise the other. You'll just have other examples for the other LP.
All right. Now this is more of a mentorship question, which is interesting. What are the responsibilities of a mentor, and generally, how much time would they spend towards mentoring in a month? I feel like that's a very like it's going to
Yeah,
depend person to person, right?
that is what you agree on with your mentor. That's not a question for me. That's you work with your mentor on what works best for you.
Right. Well, fair enough. Uh, okay, something moved suddenly. What are some unique and interesting challenges that Amazon has to offer employees on the tech side?
Um, that's not really interviewing, so I'm gonna skip that. But feel free to ask me in chat.
Yeah, and I mean, arguably, a lot of the challenges that come with, say, the scale of Amazon
Yeah,
are, that
there.
that's a challenge, right?
Yeah, you get a lot of challenges. You get a lot of things to do, and that I can't go into more that really in an interview prep thing.
All right. Well, as Zach has mentioned, we're moving into questions are have fewer and fewer upvotes now. So, but let's keep going ahead. What are red flags about the team a candidate is interviewing for at Amazon that the candidate should look for?
Tongue twister. Um, that's tough. That's. I mean, there's red flags with on calls. How bad are the on calls? How bad is work life balance? Um, like I said, I've had zero issues with work life balance. I don't. I remember one week where I worked more than 40 hours. Um, some weeks I work 12 to 16 hours on Monday and I skip Friday. It's really up to me to decide how much I work. It's just the projects. My first team, I never even had on call for 11 months. Now I do. There are teams that are going to be good. There are teams that are going to be bad. Uh, I think the red flags you look for in a company will apply to red flags for a team here at Amazon. So, uh, just look for general red flags that you would for most companies.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, right? Yeah, okay. Now,
They're not going to like my answer to this one.
can you interview with more than one team? I'm guessing that means like at once.
Yes and no. That's why you're not going to like my answer, because the answer is yes and no. If you're interviewing for a specific team, then you're interviewing for that. But there are things at Amazon, especially for SDE2s, where you're interviewing and then you're getting matched to a team afterwards. So you're interviewing for Amazon, then you pick your team afterwards. It's something that's only for SDE2s right now, for one thing. So if you're interviewing for that, yeah, you're interviewing for one on one team. If you get a yes for that team and you say no, that you kind of want to evaluate another team, they may let you re-interview and talk to another team. And chances are that interview is going to be pretty straightforward. You just talk with the hiring manager. They discuss with me, the bar raiser, if everything's good, and that's it. That may not always be the case, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That makes a ton of sense. Now this next one isn't really a question.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, okay, you seem like one of the harder such shooter interviewers. I mean,
I'm straightforward, which means I'm more intimidating. And because I'm more intimidating, I'm harder. I'm not an easy interview, and I know that. So yes, I am. I'm a harder interviewer.
okay, well, fair enough.
But because I'm straightforward, I get data easier. So I provide more data to the bar raiser when I'm not the bar raiser, or more data to the group when I am. So I get more out of people than most other interviewers do. So while I'm harder, I provide more data that's probably going to help you.
Okay, now we have a number of questions are all upvoted once.
Yeah, I could probably rapid fire these, just so we can finish off pretty quick.
Yeah, sure, go
Um,
ahead.
I don't know how to answer month of experience. You have to start working on projects. You have to start working on different things. Get experience through projects, for 1 month of experience. Amazon recruit people for internships who have completed a bachelor's. I don't think so. Ask your recruiter. Uh, Interviews virtual. Yes. I don't know if they'll go back that way. Ask your recruiter. Um, Interview is always in order. No, no, they won't be in order. They'll be in random order. So you'll always get a bar raiser. You'll always get a hiring manager, and you'll always get at least 2 ICs. Um, it doesn't Order could vary. You could be part of a pod, which means you're rotating, and the interviewers are rotating. Uh, Suppose a recruiter got a candidate with 3 to 5 years of Java, C++, has been an interview, and I don't care what you interview in. Just interview in what you're good at. Do not uh, sacrifice yourself in an interview by doing something new. I don't want you interviewing for something really. Don't try a new language in an interview, basically. When an next thing African automatically raise the bar? No. Add me on LinkedIn, I guess. Intermediate experience grad job search. How does intermediate experience grad job? What is how? I don't know what that means. Write a
Well,
better question.
okay.
What do you recommend studying late code mediums are hard for intern phone interviews? I guess. Um, do you hire coding bootcamp graduates? Most of the time, no. But that's not because I have anything against bootcamp. They just suck. Um, get better. Study, practice, learn new things, learn things outside of HTML. I have nothing against bootcamp. Just improve your ability to do stuff. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have anything against bootcamp grads. I have lots of things against bootcamps. If we failed the on-site and still within the cooldown period, is there anything? No. When I say recycle in X amount of time, they usually don't reach out to you before then. That being said, they shouldn't. They do all the time. If I say no recycle, they are legally not allowed to touch you until 2 years are up, unless I, as a bar raiser, give the okay. In the cooldown. What are things that candidates do in interviews that can sink the entire interview? Be an asshole. Um, I'm interviewing for a specific device for SD1. Uh, I need to close this, by the way. Service for SD1 hold on. I'm interviewing for a specific service for SD1 in the interview process. Differ from the new grad. It really doesn't. It's basically the same thing. We evaluated L4, whether or not you're grad or junior. Uh, Pandemic grad, how would I be able to land my first job? Same way you would without the pandemic. Uh, you should still be getting internships. People are doing those. No, you don't need a degree in computer science. It helps. It doesn't help you be a better software engineer, but it helps get a foot in the door. But I couldn't care less if you have a degree. Leak code, help with Amazon interviews, probably. As long as you do leak code questions right, like follow the guide I told you to do. That answers this and that. There's no perfect candidate. No, you can't use me as a referral. Don't ask people to refer you unless you know them and they know your work. Uh, find a mentor inside of CSCH or at the company you're interviewing for. The company usually has an internal site for that. Amazon hired someone with no experience in programming. Not really. I think there's a boot camp you could join, especially if you're a veteran. If you're a veteran, look at the veterans channel. There's veteran things where you could start going through, learn how to code. I think that's the only thing. I don't know though. What if you can't answer the questions in time? Do people still uh, yeah. In fact, sometimes questions aren't meant to be answered. It's how you solve those questions, how you get to that point. And am I tired of answering questions? Yes, that's the last question.
Yes, so and right on time too. It's what yeah, it's 12 a.m. my time. It's what 9 p.m. what like West Coast, something like that.
Yeah,
Uh
9 p.m. West Coast. Yeah.
right. So I guess yeah, I guess I mean you were right on time to kind of wrap things up. So I think we'll just skip the
Yeah, I don't those questions, but yeah.
all right, cool. Well, in that case, we're going to bring the event to a close now. Uh, before we go, I believe we have a survey to provide feedback for this event. Uh,
Hopefully
have,
you have that because I don't.
yeah, I don't have the link to
It's
that.
yeah, we'll find it. We'll send out a notification.
Right.
I really want feedback on this. I really want your feedback and tell me not just how I did, but how we can improve these events because we want to do more of these in the future with different companies. So if something didn't work, tell me why it didn't work and how to improve it.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll send out the link to feedback survey so we can know how you enjoy this event and what you want to see in future events because we're going to doing these along with our semi-regular office hours. And I guess with that, I will wish every one of you a great weekend now, and we're going to end. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Have a good weekend,
CSCH
everyone.
CSCH signing off.